Howdy folks, Greyhawk4x4 coming at you again, your resident vintage gamer. And today's video is going to be my official review of Salt Lake Comic Con 2017. There's going to be quite a few gaming elements in the review, so you might want to stick around. Let's go. Okay folks, so I have done reviews for all of the Comic-Cons that we've had here in Salt Lake since it started, with the exception, I think, of one. And the only reason that I skipped that one was that Salt Lake Comic-Con and what they consider small media, which obviously is what the category I fall into for them, there has been kind of a love-hate relationship over the years. To start off, when Salt Lake Comic-Con was first formed and the idea came around and they decided they were going to do one and everything, they used what they consider small media, meaning bloggers, YouTubers, podcasters, etc. They used us exclusively to initially get the initial word out about the existence of Salt Lake Comic-Con and when it was going to be, and who was going to be the guest and all that type of stuff. Because when they first started off, they didn't have a lot of capital to be using big major media networks and so forth. So they relied on social media, all of us small media, to get the word out. And we did such a good job that I believe the initial attendance for the very first one was expected to be somewhere around 20,000 people. And if memory serves me correctly, it was well over 50,000. It might have been somewhere around 70,000, I think. So it was like way above what they expected and everything. And of course, they attributed quite a bit of that to the social media people. All of us small media that helped get the word out. And that was great because all of us could get press passes. They were eager to give us press passes so we could get in there and cover the event and then do reviews about it and podcasts or whatever. And it was a fantastic relationship. And then just a couple years in, Salt Lake Comic-Con really took off. And I think it was the second or third year that we hit 120,000, and it became like the third largest in the United States, behind San Diego and New York, and then now Salt Lake. And at some point, they, I guess, felt that the usefulness of us small media we'd run our course, that we were no longer really useful, that they'd gotten big enough to where they didn't really need to rely on us to spread the word and so forth. And it became very difficult to get press passes unless you were, Entertainment Tonight or anybody, somebody like that who, big media outlets that want to cover the event. But for podcasters and YouTubers and so forth, it was very difficult to get press passes. So I didn't go to one. There was one I skipped. And so then here recently, for this last one, I applied for it. And to my surprise, I got accepted for press passes again. So they've kind of done a 180. They've kind of gone back and said, hey, maybe we actually do want to, utilize the small media people to help get the word out and so forth. So it seems like that relationship has kind of come full circle, which is a good thing. So, so that's kind of the history of how things have gone. Now I want to get into the hits and misses of this particular Comic-Con. So in the past, there's been a huge problem with overcrowding at Salt Lake Comic-Con. Now, I've never been to San Diego, and I've never been to New York, and I know that those are, historically very, very crowded, to the point of being uncomfortable and so forth. But when we first started out here, it wasn't that bad, and then, of course, as we grew, it started to get really bad. And it became a sore spot for a lot of people who were really complaining and saying, hey, particularly Saturdays are horrible. You can't hardly move, and it's uncomfortable, and so forth. This year, they probably, I want to say they doubled all of the walkways, the width of all of the walkways. It was fantastic. they really went out of their way to open everything up and make it much easier to get around, and you're not constantly bumping into each other and being squished and so forth. That was fantastic. They did a great job on that. And it didn't seem like they really lost a lot, you know, in the way of features or anything. They just seemed to do a good job on handling the space much better. So that was one of the pluses, big ones. The other one was the expansion of the gaming area. I'm going to shoot a picture here for the D&D Explorers League. I'll put that in here real quick. Now that's just the one single room just for the Explorers League they had, but what you can't see is behind us. We didn't, for whatever reason, we didn't take a picture of it. But behind us, there's a huge room full of long tables for board games. And anybody else that wanted to play role-playing games or whatever, you know, dice games, card games, you know, Magic, whatever. And so it used to be they had it literally in a hallway. The gaming area was just in a hallway. So it was very cramped and so forth. And now they've given an entire big suite kind of thing, and even a dedicated room just for the D&D 5th edition, you know, Explorers League. And the picture I showed you there, that was right when they started that morning, so it didn't look very crowded, but it gets pretty crowded later on. So they seem to have really dedicated some more space and attention to gaming folks, which is fantastic. So that's, you know, they've overall handled the space better, the gaming's much better, so forth. A couple things on the misses that they missed on this year, I think, is the guests were not, for lack of a better term, you know, the same caliber, the level of what, you know, we've come to expect at Comic-Con. I mean, we had, I think the year before we had Chris Evans, you know, Captain America, and then the one that played, I can't think of her name right now, the one that played Agent Carter, she showed up. That was a surprise when Chris Evans was on at his panel. She just kind of showed up and everything. And then there was a lot of, I mean, we've had, you know, Mark Hamill, we had Carrie Fisher, we had Leonard Nimoy did a video, because his health wasn't good, of course, at the time, and so he did a video conference, kind of a panel that way. And we've had other big names that, you know, that of course escape me and everything. But we've had some pretty good, you know, big names that have come. And this year didn't seem to be quite on that same level. I think we were all hoping for Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman, of course. That would have been fantastic if she had come. But we did have some big names and so forth. And it just didn't seem to be on that level, you know, so it just seemed to be a little bit lacking this year. And then the other minus that I would give them for this year would have been the way they handled some of the panels. There have always been a ton of panels for Salt Lake Comic-Con, and they even have ones for specifically for role-playing, Dungeons and Dragons, you know, how to DM, being more creative with your game worlds, and all these different types of creative panels and so forth. And they've always invited local people that are in that, you know, what's the word I'm looking for here? In that industry, I guess is the best way to put it, that have some expertise to go up on the panel and everything. And we have a local author here who actually also runs Dungeon Crawlers Radio, and he, Daniel Swenson, and he has always been on the panels for a lot of that stuff, because he's kind of an expert on some of that stuff, especially like on doing podcasts. Dungeon Crawlers Radio is a huge podcast and so forth, and he was cut out of all the panels this year. They said he, again, back to that small media thing, he wasn't a big enough name to be on the panel and so forth. So that was kind of disappointing, that they're still having a little bit of an issue with, you know, wanting to have a hierarchy and so forth. So I was a little disappointed with that, but overall, it was a good convention. Everything seemed to run very efficiently. The wristband thing that they do in advance is fantastic. There used to be lines around the block to try and get in the place, and now they just ship out your wristband in advance, and you activate it on your computer, and then you get to the venue and you just scan your wristband and walk in. I mean, it couldn't be easier. So that's another plus. They do a good job with that. So now I want to get on to some of the things that really were fantastic. And number one was the best cosplay I've ever seen in my life. And I'm going to shoot you a picture here, and some of you will recognize this. Anybody that's ever played World of Warcraft will recognize this cosplay. Now, for those of you that do not recognize it, that is none other than the Lich King from World of Warcraft, Arthas. And that cosplay was actually done by the guy who's in it. It's his wife who made that costume for him. Everything. I mean, the blade, Frostmourne lights up. His eyes inside of his helmet light up. The detail is. Here's another picture. I want to show you. Here's another picture of a close-up of some of the detail on that costume. So as you can see, I mean, this was incredibly detailed. Every little aspect she put, concentration into, and even in makeup underneath the helmet, even though you would think he doesn't, there's makeup to make him look undead, the blue contacts, and then the lighting effects on the sword and the helmet and so forth, the fur on the boots, everything. I mean, it was amazing to see it in person. The pictures don't even do it justice. To see that guy walking through, it stopped the convention. I mean, people were just, oh my God, you see Arthas. I mean, people that didn't even know World of Warcraft were like, holy crap, what the hell is that? That's badass, And there was just like a procession, people following, seeing where he was going. And of course, he was going to a professional shoot that they do there for some of the top tier cosplayers. And so I wanted to show that to you guys, to let you guys know that was best cosplay I've ever seen in my life. I've seen quite a few of them there at the different cons and stuff. Never seen anything that good before. And maybe it's because I'm a World of Warcraft nut, but that was amazing. So, so that was one thing that was, in my opinion, was fantastic. The other thing was that there were some of the panels that we went to that were really well done. One was, there was John Barenthal. I think I'm saying his name correctly. And he plays the Punisher on Daredevil, on Netflix, on Daredevil, and then the latest iteration where they're as a group. I can't remember. I don't think he's in that particular first season, but I'm sure he'll show up at some point. But he was in Daredevil, and now they've done an offshoot of that just for the Punisher. And his panel was fantastic. I mean, he really went into detail about how he gets into character and, motivations. And for anybody that was in the audience that was thinking about getting into acting, I can't imagine that being more valuable. I mean, he was like giving a clinic on how to get into character and so forth, and giving some, and then he even talked about he was also on The Walking Dead, too. He was Shane on The Walking Dead. And he gave insight about that, about how them shooting that, and it was a fantastic panel. And then one of my favorites, Elijah Dushku, did a panel, of course, and she was talking, about Buffy and Dollhouse and so forth and so on. But she also talked about a little bit about the fact that I don't know if it's Netflix. It might be Netflix, it might be Hulu. I'm not sure who's going to be doing it. But it has been announced that she's going to be the lead in a new series based upon the Glenn Cook books called The Black Company. Now, I've started reading the first one. And I have my friend Brad here who is the one who gave me these books. And he said, that he told me, you've got to read these. This is one of the best fantasy series ever, you know. And it's supposed to be, they're saying it's going to be the next Game of Thrones type series, and it's going to be that good. And I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe this is going to be her character. That's the, let's see if I can get that a little bit closer for you to see that. And my understanding is her character's name is the Lady. She's called the Lady. And I believe that's who Elijah Dushku is going to be playing. So, I got to get busy and finish reading these books. I got to read them all before the series comes out, because I'd love to have all that, because if I don't have Game of Thrones, I didn't read that and started watching. I love the series. I wish I would have read it first, you know. So, that was fantastic. And then, that leaves us with the swag. The first thing is, there was an author there named Michael Stackpole. And he was signing these. I bought one of these from him. And this is a standalone World of Warcraft novel based on Vol'jin. And, of course, he signed it for me. And I did not know. I did some research about him. And I didn't realize that he's been a game designer, too. Way back in the day in the 80s with Coleco and some different things. And even role-playing games and so forth. So he's not just, you know, an author. He's done game design and everything else. And he was a really nice guy. And while he was there, he had a few of these. And I was one of the first ones. Luckily, I was one of the first ones there that day, because he only had a few of them. He had these. And these were promo cards for the collectible card game, the Star Wars collectible card game. And that's actually him and Timothy Zahn, the other author, Star Wars author, are the two males in that picture. And then the female, unfortunately, she wasn't there at the convention to get her autograph. But it's him and Timothy Zahn. They actually got to play characters for this picture for the card game. And this is the actual card game. They look, you know, the regular size, you know, same as Magic type thing. And this is what the box looked like, because I actually do have the game, and I bought it used. And this card, this promo one, was for the expansion. So I don't have the regular size card for this, but I do have this now. This is a kind of a one-of-a-kind. I mean, he had a few of them, but there's not too many that are signed by both him and Timothy Zahn. And if you're having trouble thinking about who Timothy Zahn is, Timothy Zahn wrote the Thrawn trilogy for Star Wars. And it's, you know, everybody says it was the thing that really kicked off the expanded universe for Star Wars. And so I got this from him last year. I bought this. He was there and got him to sign that. And then he was nice enough this year to sign the same card. So I got it signed by Michael Stackpole and Timothy Zahn on the same card. So if I ever get to meet that actress that's playing Mara Jade in there, then it'll be complete. So one day. So anyway, that was kind of neat that I got to meet him and got to get the signatures and that special item and all that. Picked up some metal dice, that metal 20-sideds that were really nice from a local guy that makes these. And they had a thing there where you roll to get a discount or whatever, and I got like $3 off. And these were like, I think they were $5 a piece. So it was like $7 because I had a $3 off thing. So it was like basically $3.50 a piece for two nice metal D20s. So that was actually pretty decent. And then I just wanted to mention this real quick. If you guys are, anybody that you know that goes to conventions and so forth, and if they're promoting themselves and they're giving out business cards and so forth, you give out a business card. I give out a lot of them, of course. You give them out and everything, and they get thrown away. They get put in somebody's pocket. They get forgotten, whatever, you know. What this company here did, and this is a local company, Paragon City Games. Let's see, there you go. And what they did is, if you ask for a business card, they give you one, but they put it inside there, and this is a little like notepad thing, and they give it to you like that. And I think that is a brilliant idea, because you're less likely to throw this away or misplace it or whatever, because this will probably go in my backpack, my convention backpack, and this will just be, this little notepad will just be, if I need to write down things, like a want list of things I want to do, or signatures I want to get, or whatever, just kind of a, you know, it'll be fantastic. Just keep it and throw it in my backpack. and then I have a notepad at any time in my backpack. So, and it helps me, you know, and of course I won't forget their name and everything. So I thought that was a brilliant idea instead of just handing out a business card, you know. That was a pretty good idea. And then the last thing that I got, and I did want to mention this because this is one of those cautionary tale type things. They had all these little Lego vendors that were there that were selling all these different Legos and stuff. And this, of course, is the Weeping Angel from Doctor Who. And they're my favorite villains in the Doctor Who universe. And so I was like, well, I guess I better get one of those just to put up on the shelf because I do like them and everything. And I like Legos, of course, and so forth. So I bought it, and then when I got home, I realized these aren't real Legos. They are knockoffs. And the way that you can tell, other than the damn thing falls apart, if you barely touch it, it falls apart. The other thing you can tell, and you won't be able to see it on here probably, maybe, is that on those little circle things there, as you know, if they're real Legos, they say Lego. On each one of those little circles, they say Lego. And these don't. And, of course, this thing, there you go. There you go. See? All I did was pick it up. And it fell apart. And, of course, you know, it just goes right back. But real Legos would never be that flimsy, you know. So, if you're at a convention and you see one of these damn vendors selling all these, I mean, they had every kind of character you could think of, you know, in Lego form. They're probably not real Legos. So, before you plunk down $10 or whatever it is I paid for this thing, you know, just keep that in mind. And then this wasn't even at the convention. This was actually on our way back. We stopped at, there's a place called Gardner Village here in Salt Lake. And it's kind of a, it's like a little village, set up like a little village that you walk through, like I don't want to say medieval village, but it's that type of feel, you know. It's got like streams running through it and all that kind of stuff. And it's all shopping and all that, and then there's food, and there's a farmer's market and that kind of stuff. And there's even, I think there's a petting zoo for the kids and that, you know, that kind of stuff. But for Halloween, they really go all out, and they have, they turn it into Witches Village, and they got witches all over the place and all this stuff. And they always have these cool shops in there that have cool stuff for Halloween. And I always find props and stuff that I can use in my gaming campaign back here. And I found, and this year, of course, I did find some more stuff. I found stuff like this, which, again, if I'm going to be doing the Giants campaign, which I plan to, all of these little things are like giant size. If you have the Giants compared to this, these would actually be perfect sized in scale to them. And I already bought some other pieces from my last vacation. I got some stuff that was like for a blacksmith and all that kind of stuff. And then they had stuff like this. This is a pretty cool little lean-to, a woodland lean-to made of leaves and that kind of stuff that I could see, you know, the NPC, having an NPC or something out in the woods where the characters, you know, come up and campfire and this lean-to and so forth with, maybe there's somebody inside. Maybe there's a druid. Maybe there's a ranger. That's who would build this type of stuff, right? You know. So I found all these little props and stuff. There's some candles on a. That's actually a tree trunk with candles burning on it, you know. And I find all those kind of little things at Gardner Village, and so I'm always on the lookout for that kind of stuff, so I can put, you know, have more props and things for the game mat and make it more immersive and so forth. And so basically that's it. That was the trip for Comic-Con this year for me and my buddy Chris. And it was, again, it was a great con. We don't really go on Saturdays too much because it's still very crowded, but they did much better with the space and everything. But overall, it was a good experience, and I guess we'll catch you guys on the flip side.